You've now reached the section where it's time to enter the medications the patient received for their rare cancer. You're asked to enter each line of therapy, beginning with the first line treatment the patient received. Each line of therapy may include systemic therapy, such as chemotherapy agents or immunotherapies, radiation, surgery, and other therapies. If you don't remember the details of all of the lines of therapy administered to the patient, enter as much information as you can and skip any questions you're unsure of. Please pay particular attention, however, to lines of therapy that used a drug in a novel or repurposed way, such as for a new indication, a new dose, or frequency of administration. An example of lines of therapy of a patient is described that might be useful to demonstrate how to enter this information. Rosie was diagnosed with angiosarcoma, and her medical team decided to use radiation as a first line of therapy. After this was unsuccessful in treating her disease, she underwent surgery and began taking the drug paclitaxel as a second line of therapy. Unfortunately, Rosie did not respond to these treatments either, and her disease metastasized. Her medical team decided to begin a third line of therapy, once again using surgery, but changing the drug treatment to a combination of pazopanib and doxorubicin. Therefore, this case would be entered as first-line therapy radiation, second-line therapy surgery plus systemic therapy with paclitaxel, and third-line therapy surgery plus systemic therapy with pazopanib and doxorubicin. So for each line of therapy, begin by entering whether it included surgery, systemic therapy, radiation, unknown, or other. Begin by selecting the Add Line of Therapy button and choose from these options. If it contains systemic therapy with medications, additional questions will be triggered about those medications. The same is true if you select surgery. If you selected systemic therapy, you'll be asked about which drugs were administered during this line of therapy. You can add the drugs here. Again, I'll use drugs just for the sake of testing it, abacavir, and let's say Aberalex. And if you wish to enter information about the dose of medication, duration of treatment, or adverse events associated with a particular medication, select the pencil icon next to the drug to add those details. But it's also perfectly fine to skip all of the dosing details and just add the medication names. Once you've added the medications, you'll be asked about the goals and outcomes of each line of therapy. If you feel there's something you wish to add that has not been captured, you can add that to the free text box here. So for example, I'll say that the goal was to cure the patient's cancer and that the patient experienced a partial response, and how long the patient has been experiencing that response and whether the outcome is ongoing. I can skip any additional information which I don't wish to include. Make sure you click Save Line of Therapy and then add an additional line of therapy to enter a second line treatment. So for example, perhaps in this case, it was radiation and surgery. The patient's tumor was entirely removed. The goal was to control the patient's disease, and they experienced complete remission. Save the line of therapy, and then you will be able to continue to the next screen. You've now reached the last section of the form. This is where you can share the patient's current status at the time of this report, as well as any other information you wish to add, and select if you want to receive a reminder to update or edit your case. We'll select that the patient was alive and in complete remission. I won't choose to add any additional details here, but you could if you wanted to, and then select if you wish to have a reminder or no, you don't wish to have a reminder. You're then given the option to upload any images or documents that you think would help to provide context about the case you've entered. These might include things like genetic testing reports, lab reports, x-rays, and others. Please, however, be sure that before you upload any documents, you have removed or blacked out any information that could identify the patient. This includes things like names, medical record numbers, dates, distinctive markings, or tattoos. Any image that contains identifiable information will not be able to be incorporated. After selecting Continue, you're finally presented with the final summary page where you can review all of the information that you have entered. Please double check it for accuracy and completeness. And if you need to change anything, you can go back and select a part of the menu to return to that section. Once you have reviewed the entire case report, click Submit. And you have now submitted the case report form. If you are a clinician, on the page before, you are given the option to anonymize your case report here if you don't want your name to show as the author of the case. However, if you're entering the case as a patient or care partner, your name is automatically hidden. Remember that if you have any questions as you're entering your case report or run into any problems, we're here to help. Email us at curesupport@nih.gov for assistance. Thank you for taking the time to share your rare cancer treatment experience with CureID. Listen now for our last video on what happens after you've submitted your case.